Hey, what's up, YouTube? This is EV Comics, and this is a video I don't want to make. But this is a video that I feel like I have to make because this is ridiculous. um, a lot of people are going, and I think it's going to be mostly Rippaverse stands, are going to be livid. I think they're going to be very annoyed by this video. They're going to take everything at the worst faith possible, and it's going to be bad. But let me play this video so you got something to watch. This is the video that started the whole thing today. That struck a nerve with me. Now, the comic itself is not necessarily striking a nerve. The Great War of Separation is referring to Texas removing itself from the United States. Now, this is in line with the Rippaverse lore, if you'll call it, of Texas being its own country and not a state. Now, don't have any problem with that. Fictional world, it can be whatever. You know, I don't have a problem with Texas being its own country. I don't have a problem with that in this story at all. And to a further extent, I wouldn't have a problem with this comic at all if it weren't for one thing that's been consistently said since the beginning of the Rippaverse. Leave your politics at the door. Now, I proposed a question. How can you possibly not have politics involved with a story about Texas, a highly conservative state, separating itself from the United States? How is it possible to have a story about this subject matter not be political or biased in any way? I challenge you watching this video to think of some way that it's possible. Because it's not. It is not possible. And again, this would not be a problem. I would not have a problem with this story, and I would even be interested in a story like this. Because there's been times the idea of Texas separating from the United States has been brought up. I mean, I think it was last year, someone from Texas and the government of Texas mentioned it or brought it up for some kind of like discussion, and of course it got turned down, like it has multiple times before. And I think that's an interesting idea to make a story on. However, I don't think it's possible to leave your politics at the door. And this is something that I've known in the back of my mind. I've known it since the Rippaverse began, that leaving politics at the door was not going to be possible for Eric. And maybe this is Chuck's politics too, because I think he's writing this book. Maybe that's the case. And maybe it's both of them, right? Again, I would not have a problem with a story like this. Didn't mean to start the volume. I would not mind a story like this. The idea seems fairly interesting. But when you say, leave your politics at the door, that's what you do with the Rippaverse, and then you release a book like this, you can see why it seems a little ridiculous. Now, again, I have no ill will towards the Rippaverse or Eric July. You know, indie comics of all kinds, unless you're just doing something blatantly illegal. I want to support indie comics. I don't care about the drama. I'm not trying to be a drama farmer. But I have to call out bad behavior. And that's what we're going to look at here today. So this, Eric July tweets this video here. And this comic's actually coming out very soon, honestly. And the comment I leave is this. The Rippaverse is not leaving politics at the door. There is no possible way for this comic to not include libertarian values with what has been established about the country of Texas in this universe. I'm sure most fans won't be bothered, but it's yet another inconsistency. And the other inconsistencies I refer to is something I haven't brought up since the last Yaira video. And I try to not bring it up because I don't want to dwell on it. I don't want to focus on the drama. I want to focus on the story and the art. That's the main thing that I try and do with my reviews, is trying to focus on this. And there was a drama at the time with Yaira that if you watch my videos, you know it, but I'll quickly summarize it. Yaira was delayed. It's all but confirmed by the Rippaverse itself. The Yaira was delayed until the very dead end of winter because of redraws. Eric said there was no redraws. All of a sudden, Kanan gets on board, makes this make sense. His words, not mine. Yaira made sense, and redraws all of a sudden happen. And I tried to give a good faith interpretation of what might have happened here. Most people believe the bad faith. I lean on the bad faith one now. That Yaira was delayed because the art needed work. And maybe the art wasn't going as quickly as needed to hit winter. So Eric got Kanan involved, maybe even Chuck Dixon involved. Not Chuck Dixon, Joe Bennett. And made it come out by winter. So technically there was no lie as far as like what he said when the comic was going to come out, right? It came out during winter. It's true. But you can see it was delayed. And again, it wouldn't be a problem if he just said there were no delays. If he said there were no, since he said there were no delays, there's a problem because it's he's saying one thing and then something else is being presented. You could just say we're delaying Yaira a little bit. It will still come out in winter, but we're delaying it a little bit. There's going to be a few things that we're going to tweak to make sure this comic is the best quality ever. And it would have been perfectly fine. No one would be talking about it at all. No one would be discussing it. There would have been even less drama, and I wouldn't even made my videos that I made on Yaira about it other than the review. That would have been the end of it. But because of this, it's an inconsistency. And now this is another inconsistency. So Eric responds, what do you define as libertarian values? Now this is interesting. This is interesting because I'm wondering why he's focusing on this. I wonder why. Let's see why, okay? The no income tax line from Horseman. I put the parentheses behind line. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to do that. In the Horseman, which before people say you didn't read it, I have it in my hand. There's a line where the Horseman is moving his sister and nephew to Texas, away from the city he was in because he's in some crime trouble. Some criminals are coming after him, right? He moves to Texas and he says, the great thing about this is that there's no income tax too. Now that, ladies and gentlemen, is a libertarian thing. Don't believe me? Let's look at what the co-founder of Being Libertarian, Eric July himself, look at this section up here, co-founder of Being Libertarian. Let's see what Mr. Eric July has to say. What is that on his hat? What is that on his hat? Taxation is theft? Interesting. It's almost as if that is a libertarian value. And this is in ISOM 1. Now, I knew back in 2023, the second I picked up this book, read it, and saw that artwork of him with the taxation is theft on his hat, I knew from that moment that there was no way that they were ever going to leave their politics at the door. I knew that it was already an impossibility because he broke it on the first book. He could have put anything on his hat. He could have put the Rippaverse logo. He could have put his band. He could have put some kind of a movie or something that he really likes. He could have put anything on that hat. But he told, or if he didn't tell him, he approved the artwork of him with taxation is theft on his hat. Now again, nothing wrong with having your political opinions. Nothing wrong with even putting it in your own material. If you write the characters, if you write the world, if everything belongs to you, you can put your political stuff all in it. I don't care. No one cares. Well, maybe people who disagree with you care. But it is not a problem unless you say we're leaving politics at the door. Because then it's a huge problem. Because you're actively saying one thing and then doing another. It's called lying. And this is a very evident moment that libertarian values are getting put in the Rippaverse comics. From the Horseman and from the very first book, ISOM number 1, with his hat. Now, granted, the hat is not part of the story. That has nothing to do with the story. Whenever I read that, it didn't bother me. I let that slide. I'm like, I don't really care. This is just an artwork of him. It's not that important. It doesn't serve anything to the plot or the characters. Nothing. So I don't really care about it. No issues. But then, here's the pipeline. You got the taxation is theft hat. Go to Gooding, where it mentions the country of Texas. All right. Then we're moving on to Horseman, where it says no income tax. Okay. And then we're moving on now to the Great War of Separation, that's somehow not going to be political, when the country of Texas is obviously a libertarian wet dream. You can't say that you're leaving your politics at the door whenever you have this. I'm sorry. It's not possible. It's not. So what does Eric July say to this? What does Eric July say to this? So libertarian values is just when no income tax. Pardon? Pardon? Did I say that's it? Do you want me? Here, let me look up libertarianism wiki. Let's see. Wikipedia. Okay. Copy. And paste. I can't reply because I got locked for telling someone to jump off a bridge. But that was justified. Dang it, that was justified. Anyway, the main thing, the main point I'm getting at here is: does he expect me to copy and paste the entire definition of libertarianism just because he asked what I define as libertarian values? No. I'm pointing out a value that you yourself have put in the first comic of Rippaverse. You yourself have put that in there. You yourself, or Chuck Dixon, or both of you, put the no income tax in the country of Texas in Horseman. You are putting a libertarian value in the comics. My brother in Christ. I reply, taxation is theft is on your hat in an artwork of you from ISOM 1. And you co-founded Being Libertarian. So I would say it's a value of libertarianism, right? I think I'm sane. I might be a little heated right now, but I think I'm sane. He responds, me being libertarian doesn't change us leaving it at the door. We're talking about the company and the universe. My God, he's thinking on a level that is impossible to comprehend. He's thinking on different wavelengths entirely. He's dodging bullets in the Matrix, man. I don't understand why. I understand why. Let me put it this way. I understand why. Because he can't argue against the point. It's irrefutable facts that you are not leaving your politics out of the story, man. Leaving the politics at the door. That includes the comic. That includes the things you make. Talking about the company and the universe. Okay. The company and the universe. Okay, the company. I don't know what the company life is out there. I would love to find out. I would love to really find out what it is like to work in the Rippaverse. I don't live in Texas, so I'm not going to do that. But people say I sound like I'm from Texas, but I'm not. As far as the universe goes, my brother in Christ, you have taxation is theft, no income tax in the country of Texas, of which all of your stories take place. You can't argue against it. You can't. It's not possible. And yet here he is trying to say that he's doing this. I gave him an out. I gave him a chance to realize what the issue is. And instead he says, what do you define as libertarian values? He's changing the focus of the conversation to what I think libertarianism is. And after I indulged this, after I caught him in blatant inserts of libertarian values, he just changes it to saying oh no, I don't do that. I just showed you how. You replying to the comment of me showing you how you are not leaving it at the door. And you just say that you're still leaving at the door. It's not possible. I'm sorry. It's maddening. It's maddening. And this is why I made this video. Because some people say, people just make videos instead of trying to talk it out. Instead of trying to have a conversation, they make a video for rage engagement and all that kind of stuff. This is why some people do that. Now, I will say a lot of people jump the gun and will just farm off of drama. I've talked about EVS and why I think he's one of the worst for that. And I think a lot of people I see on Twitter are very bad for that are in EVS's camp. I think the world would be a much calmer place as far as the comics scene goes if everyone just focused on what they're doing instead of critiquing every single tiny nitpick of someone else. I don't like to make this video, but I feel like I have to because this is ridiculous. This is not having a conversation. Because if I were to just keep talking, if I were to just keep trying to debate him on this, he would never admit fault. Because I've caught him in a factual lie. He can't deny it. And yet he's still denying it. You can't talk it out with this. At some point, you either have to walk away like me and make this video and just hopefully leave it at this, or you, as the person who's been caught in some kind of mistake or lie or whatever, have to admit defeat. This is something that's vital for someone in the creative scene. Give you an example. I made Yishu Mystic Inc. beginning of 2023. No, 2022. Yeah, no, 2023. I made Yishu Mystic Inc., which is a hybrid novel, which is basically just a book with pictures. I made that and I released it on Global Comics. And only Global Comics because I wanted to make money off of this comic. And how it works is you can have the first portion of the comic for free, and then people can read the last portion of it, the last half of it, by paying, I think I said it for $3. I can't remember exactly what it was. But I set a small dollar amount to finish reading the second half of the story. And within a month of posting that and promoting it and trying to get it as much as possible with a very small budget of promotion, with trying to get as many people to check it out as possible and to hopefully buy the second half of it, not a single person bought it. And now I could have said, you guys don't know good media. I could have been like that. I could have been raging. I could have been defending it and saying, there's nothing wrong with this. You guys are the problem. It's not me. But I ultimately said, okay, this was not successful. The Indiegogo campaign did not raise any money for me to make this into a physical product. Did not make any money. It was just completely, irrefutably, factually speaking, a total failure. And I had to take that and say, okay, let's go back to the drawing board. Let's do something different. So I took the next year focusing on another story. And by the time August rolled around, I was ready to start making that story. I was ready to start making Little Miss Steel. And now let's compare Little Miss Steel to Yishu. With Little Miss Steel, I haven't charged money to read it online. However, I have received over 3,000 views on Global Comics, plus some with Webtoon. And I'm selling physical copies locally. And while it's not making any kind of ISOM #1 numbers of 3.7 or whatever $million, I consider that a success. I consider that to be much better than what Yishu did. And ultimately, if I had have just doubled down, and just kept trying to do Yishu, kept trying to make it work, kept trying to force that to work, I would not be making videos like this. I don't think. I would not be here on YouTube making these types of videos. I think I would be doing something else. I think I would be just a more miserable person because I'm trying to force something that doesn't work to work. But with Little Miss Steele, obviously people like it. I've gotten quite a bit of following on social media, like DeviantArt. I've gotten quite a bit of following on there. People like my art. People like my story. And they're excited to see what happens next. And I'm starting to foster a community that is genuinely excited about the creative projects that I am making. And that's awesome. I love that. But none of this would have happened if I didn't just swallow my pride, admitted defeat with Yishu Mystic Inc., pushed it aside, and started something else. I knew that the story was not as captivating as I thought it was. I accepted the fact that the presentation of a hybrid novel is not going to get people excited on Global Comics because they're there for comics. So I ultimately put my nose to the drawing pad and started making a full-blown comic. And I've made 2, and I'm at the halfway point done with the 3rd. And this year, I'm planning on releasing volume 3, 4, and 5. That's my goal, is to do 3 comics this year. And for me, with a full-time job, that's all I can do. But I would have not been on this path if I didn't admit defeat, if I didn't accept criticism, if I did not take the failure as what it was, a failure. All I'm asking is for Eric July to just realize the facts that you are inserting your politics into the story. And you can either do 2 things, and I would be okay with it. 1, stop saying you're leaving politics at the door, and just accept the fact that your story is libertarian coded. Or 2, admit that you made a mistake and that you're not going to pursue these types of libertarian innuendos in your stories. Either one would be fine with me. I don't care. And I think ultimately this is a problem that the fan base is not going to care about. The Rippaverse fans are not going to care about this at all. But I care because it's dishonest. And I just want some honesty. I just want to know that when I buy a Rippaverse comic, that the values that you uphold are the values that you uphold. I want to know that what you say, your code of ethics, is actually being followed. Because right now, I don't see a whole lot different between the Rippaverse and DC and Marvel. They're both inserting politics into their stories. Their stories are often mid. What is so different? What is so different between the Rippaverse and DC and Marvel right now? Other than the politics are different. There's not really much different going on, man. I hate to say it. Because I believe in stuff like this. I believe in stuff like the Rippaverse. I want to see indie comic companies do good. I want to see that success. And I'll probably keep buying a Rippaverse book. Like, I want to buy ISOM 3 just to finish out the set. Alpha Core 2, whenever that drops. I'll probably buy that because I like Chuck Dixon's writing. But I'm not just mindlessly going to buy everything assuming that this company is going to uphold its code of ethics and be honest, because I've seen that evidently that they're not. And I'm sorry. But you're losing me more and more, not because of the comics being mid, not because of any kind of art goofs or whatever. I can forgive mistakes. It's harder for me to forgive lying and doubling down on that lying. So with all that being said, don't do like this. If you're making a comic, take criticism. Please just accept criticism. That's all I'm asking. And until next time, peace out.